Hello. Kind of using this as a platform to right now actually tell on myself. I used drugs yesterday and I'm not feeling so hot about it. Um, it was impulsive, yes, but at the same time, it's something that I have been thinking about doing for a couple of days. So, with that said, I kind of knew it was coming, so to speak. The one thing about relapsing that I already know is that when you relapse, don't beat yourself up. Give yourself some grace period because you're already reeling and coming down from these drugs or whatever you're using. You don't want to add on to it by beating yourself up. So it's like, just give yourself a break. And so I'm trying to do that right now, give myself a break. But it is very difficult because I'm still a little upset at myself. Of course, anybody would be. So, with that said, this video today is going to be pretty much based on Sharina Rooney. Well, not just based on her, but based on Sharina Rooney's book, the readings that I found in the book, and the subject of men with BPD and the differences in visible traits, I guess, and non-visible traits, and just a stigma behind BPD. So, people with borderline personality disorder are usually seen as kind of manipulative, angrier, over emotional beings, which we are. We can be a little crazy, like, especially when I'd say about a week out from a relapse. That's when I tend to be the most on edge. So a week from today, I'll probably not be in the best of feelings or moods, or states. So I guess what I'm trying to say is I am suffering from common issues known to men with BPD. So a lot of men with BPD suffer from substance use and anger outbursts and guilt or shame over that substance use and anger outbursts. So most of the time those men end up in jail, or they end up in rehab facility, or they end up in both, going back and forth, or they end up committing suicide because they're misdiagnosed or not diagnosed or what have you. I am diagnosed, thank the Lord, because now I have this criteria, the 9 traits, to kind of help me understand myself, what I'm going through, and help me kind of divert any of my negative actions. So those 9 criteria, for those of you who don't know, of borderline, and you don't have to have all 9 in order to be considered borderline. All you need is to be diagnosed with 5 of the criteria in order to be borderline. And so, with that said, some of these criteria you can have, or some of these disorders or issues you can have without having BPD, and some of them you can have and have on top of your BPD. So I was actually just re-diagnosed borderline personality disorder, and then under that it was bipolar 2. So I've yet to fully understand what bipolar 2 disorder is, but as a matter of fact, give me just one moment, I might be able to find it. Give me just 1 second. I just got out of the hospital, so I have some hospital papers. Well, I know basic bipolar disorder. Bipolar disorder is cycles and of being manic or depressive. The cycles usually can last for weeks, sometimes months, sometimes years, and sometimes just days. So, me being borderline, I cycle through the manic and the depressive states often. Probably more so throughout the day. I find that I'm more manic, especially after I've used. But for the most part, the men who have BPD typically have while men can suffer from some of the same symptoms as women. So women usually have eating disorders, body dysmorphic disorder, and such things. While men can suffer from those, we're typically more prone to substance abuse. So I have been using every substance under the sun: cocaine, crystal meth. Oh God, I can't even tell you the number of substances I use: ketamine, marijuana, alcohol. I mean, I'll sometimes do anything to get out of the state that I'm in. I'll get so just messed up, off my face, just drunk, or what have you, just to stop feeling what I'm feeling in that moment. And of course, it only works for the short while. These are bad coping mechanisms. I'm trying to better that and learn that in the long run, there are better coping mechanisms that I can put into action. But it takes time. Recovery takes time. So I'm giving myself just kind of the grace period right now, of not beating myself up. Of course, I don't want to go out and use again. Of course, I don't want to use it all, but the chances of that happening are very high, unfortunately. But all I can do is monitor myself and my ever-changing moods and whatnot, and use these 9 criteria to kind of find out what I'm going through when I'm going through it. So the 9 criteria of being borderline, as I was trying to say, but it trailed off a little bit. So one, or I'm not even going to number them. So first, the frantic efforts to avoid real or imagined abandonment. So fear of abandonment is one of the most intense things, and it actually fuels some of the other traits of ours, some of the other negative traits of ours. So our fear of abandonment is probably at the core of what it means to be borderline. So we're constantly struggling and trying to hold on to these relationships or these people or these ideations because we have this huge and deep fear of abandonment, that everyone and everything we've ever known and ever loved will leave us. It is something that we're not thinking like that it might happen. It's something it's not conscious. It's not a conscious thought. It's a subconscious thought. It's intrusive thoughts. It's sometimes a conscious thought, but I will almost do anything to have someone not leave me. So let's give an example. So I had a partner in California. I'm not going to name his name, but we met in a very like kind of sexual environment, and then we stepped out of that environment and got to know each other just kind of one-on-one. And getting to know him, I found myself becoming obsessed with him, like absolutely obsessed. And anytime he couldn't hang out or couldn't do something, I would think, oh, there's someone else, there's something else, he's going to leave me. And so I would go to his job and stalk him through the glass. I would call and text him 1,100 times, just saying anything and everything to get him to just talk to me. And until he talked to me, I did not feel comfortable. I did not feel okay. And I didn't know at the time that it was my fear of abandonment that was kind of fueling that. And so I eventually lost that relationship because I was too much. I was too clingy. I was too all over him, and I wasn't focusing on myself. I completely forgot about my self-care and things that I needed to do for myself, which we often do. And so I don't know, it is at the core of everything. I mean, we have stormy relationships because of our fear of abandonment. So next, stormy relationships or unstable relationships. Next, we have splitting, which is alternating between idolation and devaluation. So, with that ex of mine in California, I could love him and love him and love him and think he's the best thing. But the moment I split or suffer from splitting, I start to devalue him. I start to think that he's cheating. He's not a good person. He's a bad guy. I get angry. I would send him nasty text messages, and I would accuse him of things that I would just think. Just because I thought it, I would think that it was true, and I would accuse him of it. So we also suffer from unstable self-image. So coming back to my ex, so all those feelings about him being bad and him cheating and my fear of abandonment. On top of it, I have an unstable self-image at the time because I'm thinking, okay, well, if he's doing this to me, well, then something's wrong with me. And I would go in at myself. And sometimes I would even get off my face and just get fucked up and make a fool of myself. But I was doing all these things in a frantic effort to keep myself as close to whatever remnants of myself that I had. But it would all get lost in the shuffle of all of these ups and downs and ins and outs. Oh, it's so much. Because, we have our extreme emotions. I have this fear of abandonment. I'm having this splitting. I am doing these impulsive things. And while having an unstable or unclear self-image. We also suffer from suicidal ideations. This is just idealizing just really kind of, this is something that happens when we disassociate, which is another thing that we do. It's another one of the criteria. When we disassociate, we typically don't value life at the same as much as we did when we were not disassociating. We kind of feel detached from life. We feel detached from everything. We feel even detached from ourselves. And that can lead to suicidal ideations where you could end up wanting to harm yourself, wanting to kill yourself. I have tried to kill myself a number of times. I'm not even going to go into it. But we also go through the depressive and the manic states and the anxiety. We also have uncontrollable anger and anger outbursts, sometimes followed by like shame or guilt. The shame and the guilt come from whatever happened during our breakout or our crazy moment. And so those are the 9 criteria, and I can so easily go into detail with all of these and tell you guys multiple stories with each one of these criteria and then multiple of the criteria. But I'm going to leave it there today. Thank you for watching. Love you. Mwah.